It is a beautiful spring day out here today. We are on the end run of quite a bit of rain and headed into some dry spell. Hi, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to our farm, Cornucopia Orchards. Women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. Good morning. Welcome to a very musical Tuesday. Had some Fleetwood Mac going earlier. It's a great way to start the morning out. Kind of finishing off a little bit of blocking this morning before I start the last major room for drywall in our house. How's that for crazy? We're getting started on the office today. And it's not a huge room. It's one of the bigger rooms in the house that's not an open area. But I was missing some blocking here. I'm going to leave this because of some stuff coming down through the wall. Got one more piece to put on here, and then we'll be on our way, starting off with our first piece for the ceiling. Try that again, see if I can miss the nail this time. There we go. You're blocking for drywall, especially in this application where you're not interfering with any of the insulation. You can, it can be whatever you have, so long as it's got at least, I'd say, a ½ inch for it to grip to. I'm just using 5/8 and ½ inch, and even some leftover, 7/8 or whatever trim from the outside of the house in scraps. I did use some 2x4 material, but we pretty much used all that up accurate to the piece, and then I had to buy a few more pieces, and I've probably got a few more left that I still have to buy just to finish out some stuff like some of the closet work. But we're cruising through here. So this room's kind of a bit of a mess. I have these sheets in here ready to go. Kind of wish they weren't in here, but at the same time, it'd be awful hard to get them in here by myself with the corner I'd have to make at that door. Got all this stuff in here. This is scaffolding and stuff for the outside. I'm probably just going to move that stuff to the outside again, although I need to finish this out here. We've got some birds nesting. If someone had said to me, you're going to spend probably, I don't know, a couple dozen hours minimum on this project, just moving stuff around, maybe I would have looked at them like they were crazy, but I'm certain it's over 50 hours at this point. As we built, I'd move things around, and sometimes I'd move them in order to do something and then move them back or move them somewhere else and just kind of chase it. It's crazy, especially when you're just one guy doing a lot of the work. So a little bit on this panel hoist. I would not have been able to do this project without it, without another person. It's been a tremendous help and worth every penny. I can probably resell it if I want to when I'm done, but I may just keep it in case the family needs some projects done in the future, and I may have some for it as well. Wasn't that expensive. You can rent them, but I'm glad I bought. And it's pretty simple to assemble. That's one piece. This is one piece, and it just pops out the top. This one just sits in a double cradle here in the bottom, just pops right out, and then you have the triangle for the wheels. And I have the extension because I did do some high up work in the shop, and this is just the regular extender. But if you've been watching our videos, I've used it for a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, most of the ceilings have been done with this, and we do have some sloped or cathedral ceilings, and we used it on those upstairs in the attic as well, and definitely worth the investment. It's a great tool to have. I'm very thankful for it. And this one is rated for 5/8 12 foot. I don't think it's supposed to be able to handle 5/8 16s. It only extends out a certain distance on the sides, because you can pull this out, and let me show you what that looks like. So there's this little puller here, and then essentially it's just got a couple of holes along the way, and now I can pull this. It's fairly tight, so it's going to fight me. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it with the camera watching, of course. There we go. and then it'll click when it hits the next hole. And we'll take it out to 2 for this 12-foot we're running. All right, first sheet says 139 3/4. Once I've taken off a little bit for any out of square we have there to make sure I hit this right on the button, right in the middle of that joist. So first sheet, our goal is just to get this guy square to the building or square to the room. And in this particular case, this is the primary indicator, how it's looking relative to your butt joint that you're putting on a joist. Unless you're doing something like a butt block, in which case you wouldn't have that. On that wall over there, we're off of that corner by a little bit. I can still push it that way just a little bit, I think. So I'm gonna do that. And then the only other thing that I checked to measure was I took some measurements across here just to see how we're looking relative to that wall. And then that let me know that we did need to come out just a hair over here. That's why we're off the wall. So now that the first sheet is up, the next sheet I'm going to put on is actually the next long one, not the next short one that would continue that same run. And it's definitely got enough overlap that I will easily be able to make sure it is straight relative to the first one, which is my primary. And it's got one little cutoff, and then it's got a couple of things that are going to land inside of it. But before I want to put that up, I've got a couple of things I need to prepare. So first, I've pulled the light that's over in here someplace out and just tailed it over. I got enough extra. Not really, you know, kind of just help make sure it's out of the way. I had to mark right here to indicate that I've got this smoke alarm box, so that when I put this sheet up to the ceiling, I don't have to have a poker or anything, because I found that in the ceiling, it's kind of hard to get it to stab in the right spot. That lift wants to kind of shake, and then you don't get it lined up perfect. It's holding you from getting your sheet the way you want it. So I'm not using those. So let's cut the light, the one light that is in the middle of this sheet, and get that taken care of. This one I moved out of the way. It's right on the edge. That's 4 feet. So it's not going to be in the way of our next one. Same with this light here. And then I do have this ceiling fan, heavy duty hanger. And I went ahead and just secured this down, and I'll be able to find it and route around it. Again, I've just notated right at that spot, 15 inches out this way, boom. The reason I did this one first was because I was doing this sheet first, but also because it's the one that's actually the hardest for this room, because it's a relatively square space that I'm working with. There's a light there, one kind of, where'd it go? Behind me here, right there. And that's the friend for this light here. And I can measure off of the walls easily, but this one has got kind of a hallway space that it's adjacent to. So I had to figure this one first. Essentially, I found that those two, in order to not hit the joist and be relatively the same as this one off of its wall, needed to be at about 20 inches. So for the sheet that I'm doing next, it's this one, and it's going to come this way over to this little joist right here. So it's just going to come past this wall, which is perfect. It's way better than it ending up here. It's a smaller butt joint. It's great. And I need to get that cut both for length to that joist, which I just measured is 139 1/4. And I also need to get it cut around this corner, because it actually comes down this way about till that red line on that joist there. So here's the sheet I'm set up to cut. I am cutting from the back, and there's a reason for that. That is the side that's going to have the chunk cut out for the corner, and it'll just go up like this. This is the side that I'm cutting to length because it's against the wall. It's hidden completely, and it will not cause me a problem for what little butt joint remains to that second piece of sheet right there. A couple of times in the attic where I didn't remember that, and I definitely included that in the video, and it meant that I had to go back and buzz it, and it's not as tight as it could be. And when you are sparing, 3/4 and 3/4 of a floor joist or a rafter, 1.5 inch wide, and you mess that up, that means that one of your drywall sheets won't have proper support, and it'll make the joint a lot harder to finish. And I'll set it for pencil. I'll set it 1/8 off. These construction pencils I use are pretty fat on the lead. I'm gonna go ahead and just mark that quite a ways more than needed. We're on the back of the sheet anyway. With most of these steps along the way in building this house, I've had some compliments on my craftsmanship, and some of them from people who knew well enough to see what, you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and knew well enough to know what looked good and what didn't look good. But there's a lot of variance in my work because it seems to be, with a house this big, when you don't know what you're doing, about halfway through you start to get okay at it. and we're more than halfway through on the drywall, so I'm finally getting okay at it. I know that this work would have been much better from a good crew of drywallers. Just the same as I know that the work would have been better overall from a good crew who cared what they were doing of framers. So sometimes it's the stupid stuff that I find the most exciting, and this is a stupid stuff that I find very exciting. So I had two big cutoff pieces in the other room, in the living room, that I hadn't used, and it turns out that they are almost perfect for here and here. So this one is 5 foot right now, 60 inch, and it needs to just be, let's see, what was it? 58 and a half, going this way, and 30 and a half going that way, with a tapered edge there and a factory on the other side. This has got a factory over there, so I'm going to be able to just cut this, and I'm going to take it down to 30 and a half there, and that one's going to go up in there peachy keen. And this one is like an 1/8 to 1/4 less in length than I want it to be, but I can make it work. It's going to go right up into here. What I needed was a 58, maybe a 58 and 1/8, and that's a 57 and a half. And I don't got to cut another piece for this, so that's pretty exciting, or at least it is to me. So having made this hole our anchor point, if you will, I now have to stick with it. I have put a drywall squared line off of that wall. So that wall, whatever it is our square for this room. And that allowed me, just putting that on that side, to now run a laser over to here. And then that is my line. You just got to get it exactly perfectly lined up, and I have it there. So now somewhere on this line is the center line for this hole. I'm putting it 4 feet apart, so it's going to wind up right up in here. Well, that was stupid. I measured from here over, and then I measured on this side from here over, and that's how I hit that instead of hitting my register. So yeah, I had to patch that little guy in there. Not much I can do other than just patch him in, because I don't really feel like taking the whole thing down again. But that's what's going on there. So this is an awkward wall. I've gone ahead and put on just a little piece on top, and I'm going to run 2 down below. And that's going to give me, unfortunately, 12 feet of seam. Not 12 feet of seam, about 10 feet of seam, which is more than 9 by a foot. It's all going to be tapered edge, so it's not a huge deal. But the reason I'm doing this is because this wall is 6 feet, which is an even use of a sheet. It's perfect. Vertically, 4 feet from the outside, and you want to bring your drywall to the edge of the other side. And I already cut and put this one up, unfortunately. And even if I hadn't, it still would just barely catch on this beam here. So dimensionally speaking, it makes more sense, I think, to run these two and just accept that there'll be a little bit more tapered edge seam. So that's what we're doing. I have one more cutout to do on this first sheet, one more mark to do, and then one cutout to do. Got a cutout for here, already marked. Got a cutout for down here for our switch here. Arg. That did not go as planned. Something about this corner here, maybe? I don't know. We'll put this next one up. That's not a big deal. It just doesn't look as good as I'd hoped. What are these? Well, glad you asked. They are from these bolts. They are holding up this beam on both sides. There's 3 of them. And I wanted to have this sit really nice, and I knew that if I didn't deal with them, it's not going to sit very nice. So what I've done is I just stuck this up in a position and I've smacked it a few times with my hand. I regret that decision. Oh man, my wrist does not like me. But now I have that indentation on both sides, and I can kind of scalp it out or I can route it out. You know, I've got my choice as to how I deal with it. Well, I think that worked okay. In the end, this house won't be perfect, but I'm okay with that. Not only did we save a lot of money building this house ourselves, but it's something I can be proud of. Each step of the way I've learned a skill and gotten at least, okay at that skill. And if I ever take on any more projects, I'm pretty confident that it'll come out pretty nice. Alright, well, I didn't get the whole room. I was pushing. Maybe another hour or 2 I might have done it. I did get more in a single day than I've ever gotten done before though. So we got all the walls except for this wall and the mech closet wall and this little bitty in the corner. But everything else is up and I'm pretty proud of that. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.